So God, in some sense, is willing everything. Lamentations 3. Who is there who speaks and it comes to pass, unless the Lord has commanded it? Is it not from the mouth of the Most High that both good and ill go forth? Amos 3:6. If a trumpet is blown in a city, will not the Lord tremble? If a calamity occurs in a city, has not the Lord done it? He expects the answer, yes. Genesis 50:20. As for you, you meant it for evil against me, you brothers who sold Joseph into slavery, but God meant it for good. And the key there are these two words right here. You meant, God meant. It doesn't say God used. There's nothing false about that. But this says a different thing, and it's a more radical thing, a more controversial thing. A lot of people say, Satan messes up the world, God fixes it. God's always just a few steps behind, just using stuff, using bad. Okay. That's not the picture here. The picture here is that there are two intentions in this act. This evil, you meant when you sold the people, when you sold Joseph into slavery, you meant evil, and when you sold Joseph into slavery, God meant something by it. He didn't just use it. He meant something by it. He had a different design in it. So you don't have this, you have this. God is on this thing, designing it differently than Satan is designing it, or the brothers are designing it. And I think the story of Joseph in the Old Testament is one of the most important, practical, pastoral stories in the world. To be familiar with those few chapters in Genesis is to have a way of looking at the world that is unbelievably important for your life, because if I do my math right, I think it was about 13 years between the time that he was sold into slavery and when he was finally invested into his office. Now those 13 years, his life, if you graph it, was like this. He thinks things are going to go well with Potiphar's house, and they go badly. He thinks they're going to go well in the prison, and he gets forgotten 2 more years. It just goes down, down, down. And when he's at his forgotten worst, the solution to the last 13 years is given him. I'm in it to save your family. That's what I've been doing. I've been saving the family. I've been saving the Messiah. I've been doing things you never dreamed. And some of you are 6 years into that, 10 years into that. There's no limit to 13. But to have, for me anyway, to have that paradigm. I've been at this church long enough to know how to graph things now. I'm not nearly as, I don't get as depressed nearly as easily as I did when I was 40. Because I've just seen us go through some really lean seasons as a church. God helped us weather them. We came out. There was no growth for 4 years from 1993 to 97. We didn't grow. We just agonized over stuff you don't need to know about. And then God came and he said, okay, I'm done disciplining you. I'm done, and we're going to go some places. So if, I look at the finances and I say, okay, if they don't come in at the end of this year, or if they don't come in for the next 3 years, they'll come in again someday. It's just, their life is like that. You need to graph your life. And the main thing is, suppose you graph it like this, and then you die. Glory forever. There's no guarantee that everybody's story turns out like Job's, or Joseph's. John the Baptist sure didn't. Faithful, criticism, faithful, prison, faithful, head chopped off. End of life story. Greatest man that ever was. Jesus said, greatest man born of woman. And everyone in the kingdom is greater than he. He was just one of those, just So that's important.